Been too long since we've done this. We've been out for 2 weeks. Sorry about disappointing you guys. A lot happened.
All 5 of you.
Don't sell ourselves short, Hannah. Dang.
I know. I don't even know how many listeners we have.
Let us know, listeners.
Scrolling through Instagram gave me anxiety, so I deleted it for a while.
Understandable. Well,
so I'd be like, I'm wasting my life. There's so many ads.
Ads. How are they? What even?
But holy hand grenade! This coffee's really good.
Yes. All right. We're doing a special release for that, so I managed to get my hands on some.
Yep. Special release.
Special release. The power of Kenyan coffee. It's delicious. Well, I say let's not waste any time.
Say Ken, yeah!
Donald, hit that intro. With that out of the way, after so long, I can finally say this. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the General Geekery podcast.
Woo!
This is indeed the podcast where we love to geek out about all that we love to geek out about with no remorse.
No regrets.
And with all of the enthusiasm in the world.
Sweet!
Indeed. Wait, you say indeed.
Indeed. I said something different. I was trying to shake it up, but I just ended up confusing you.
No, it's okay. That threw me off guard. As always, I am Donald. As always, I'm Donald Kaczynski, your resident coffee ninja by day, actor, gamer, and streamer by night. Hannah's just cracking me up. And joining me, as always, she is the artiste extraordinaire, the dice slinger magnificent, and our resident video game inept, Hannah Kubiak.
Woo! Hello.
And we wanted to record this specific topic a couple of weeks ago when we went to go see the film. Unfortunately, things got in the way where we weren't able to. But everything's good now. I'm back to 100% in both eyes. Sorry to keep you guys worried about that. And we are ready to talk about possibly one of my favorite films that we've seen this year. Maybe more than Shang-Chi.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely had higher expectations for this one.
Well, I mean, you were a fan of the original book.
Yes.
So for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, we are going to be talking... Dang, she bamboozled me on that one.
No.
Today we're going to be talking about Dune. Both the original book as well as the recent 2021 film that was just recently released, which me and Hannah saw a couple of weeks ago alongside, we went with Andrew Kelly, who has been a guest on the show before.
Friend of the podcast, guest of the podcast.
Friend of the podcast, guest of the podcast, and of course the person who creates our awesome intro theme, The Twilight, Andy. Mm-hmm. And it was a really fun time.
Yeah.
So, we have, between the two of us, we have two different people, in terms of, like, the series of Dune.
Two different takes on it.
Takes on it. So, I have not read the original Dune book. I haven't had the chance to do so. Mm-hmm. So, I know about its reputation as one of the greatest science fiction novels. Mm-hmm. But I just didn't know the contents. Right.
So, you are what we would say is somebody who went to see the movie, like just saw it cold, basically.
Yes, like, I went in blind. Cool. Just like when I was a kid when I saw the original trilogy for Lord of the Rings.
Right. Okay. So you went in blind, almost literally, right?
I still had the eye patch at the time.
Yeah.
I could still watch it, thankfully.
Yeah. And I have I've read the book a couple of times. I read it in high school, I think, and then I read it. Oh goodness, I think. Probably the summer of 2016 or something. I'm trying to remember. I think I'd just gotten back from Scotland then, so...
Okay.
Would have been 2016, actually. No, 2017. It doesn't matter, actually.
Regardless.
And, let's see. Do you wanna start with what your impressions were of it? 'Cause I kind of have a more of a.
I think before we dive into like the film itself, I think we need like a breakdown of the original novel first, because you have the book with you.
I do. I borrowed it from my roommate actually, because I don't actually have a.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, so basically, this is the story. It's set on the desert planet of Arrakis. It's the story of Paul Atreides, who becomes known as Muad'Dib, and of a great family's ambition to bring to fruition humankind's most ancient and unattainable dream. That's what it says on the back of the book. So, basically, Paul Atreides is the son of the Duke Leto Atreides, and they are sent from they're sent by the Imperium, like Emperor of the universe, basically, sends them to this planet, Arrakis, the desert planet, to take it from the control of this other powerful house called the Harkonnens.
They're basically like different houses, like
Yep.
In league with the Empire.
They're
I don't think that's the right word.
It's kind of a balance. More like they're only subservient to the Empire because the Empire is more powerful. Like, if all of the houses banded together, they could definitely take down the Empire, but that hasn't happened because of various loyalties and infighting between the, like, for example, the Harkonnens and the Atreides kind of butt heads a lot. And so I think the reason the Emperor sent the Atreides to, like, took Arrakis away from the Harkonnens and gave it to the Atreides was basically building this trap to destroy the Atreides house, because the Harkonnens retaliate and, like, attack and try and take the planet back.
Futuristic 100 Years War and War of the Roses type stuff.
Yeah, so it's actually a kind of cool way to put it.
I know my history.
Yeah,
that's actually one of my favorite two of my favorite historical periods to look back on in English history.
Yeah, and so the story centers around Paul, who is the son of the son of the Duke, who's put in charge of Arrakis. And the main thing about Arrakis is that, well, there's two things. First thing is that Arrakis is the only place where you can get this spice called melange. That when
they never actually named that in the film, did they?
No, they just called it the spice, which they only call it melange like once or twice in the book. So
okay,
I only know it because of memes of, like, a spice rack.
Okay, fair.
The spice called melange, which it's a hallucinogen. If you take a lot of it, you are able to sort of see the future.
I can see the double rainbow.
Yeah, you can see the double rainbow, and it's basically the only people who can navigate through space, like plot courses from planet to planet, are people who have consumed the spice, and they have that sort of heightened awareness of, like, the universe as a whole. So the spice basically is the only reason people can travel in space, which
okay, I have a course. We're just gonna go this way a couple of light years, and then we're just gonna make a right at Space Denny's.
Yep. So you just basically you consume the spice and you become a space GPS. They also
hopefully better than Siri.
Yeah, they also don't have computers anymore, because technology is what is the word? Unreliable. I'm not sure why that is exactly what happened with it. Probably technology got too powerful and had to be. So now they have these people called mentats who eat the spice and stuff, and they are able to basically act like if you give them enough data, they can calculate various things. And like in the movie, the guy, his name was Hawat. Okay. And the Duke asks him, like, how much would it cost these people to get here round trip? And Hawat kind of does some calculations. And he's like, yes, it costs so much of this, like, from in this currency. Basically, like, in his head, he calculates.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh, that's right at the beginning. That all right. That would explain that.
And so that kind of was a tangent, but
it's okay.
The spice also is used by these. There's this there's this. It's kind of an order. It's like almost a religious order / school of women called the Bene Gesserit, and
I view them like oracles. Honestly,
they're kind of like oracles.
Yeah, they have a very oracle kind of aspect to them.
And they will. I think it's the spice. They call it the truth-sayer drug. It might be the same thing. I was trying to read the whole book to figure it out, but I didn't get there. So
it's a big book.
So
there's a lot of context to it.
Yeah. So there's the Bene Gesserit, the Reverend Mother, who is like the head honcho Bene Gesserit. Mm-hmm. In order to become a Reverend Mother, you have to consume a bunch of the spice, and it's very dangerous and it can be fatal. It could kill you, but if you survive, you're like super aware of you inherit all of the memories of your Reverend Mother predecessors, basically.
Oh, jeez.
So, and
oh my God, it's like the Avatar state.
Yeah, it's like Avatar, yeah.
Sorry, I just felt like saying that.
Yeah, it's like the Avatar, or to a lesser degree, One for All.
Hannah's been on that My Hero Academia kick.
Yeah. But the Reverend Mother is also the truth-sayer to the Emperor, which basically means that she can she's got such a great foresight that she can detect lies and stuff. So the Emperor has her kind of on retainer to make sure people are being truthful to him and stuff. So that's kind of the role of the spice in this universe. It that's what people use the spice for. And it's very, very expensive. It's very, very valuable. And it can only be found on Arrakis. So there's this massive mining facility there. People are constantly harvesting spice and sending it off-world and selling it.
Is it described as a desert planet as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in the original book. That's all I wanted to know.
Mm-hmm. And the Harkonnens got really, really rich harvesting the spice and selling it for 80 years while they were in charge of Arrakis. And the Emperor was like, all right, you have too much power, you're cut off, and he gives it to the Atreides instead. But the Atreides were kind of set up to fail almost, as kind of like a plot to sort of take down the Atreides house because they're becoming a little bit too powerful. So it's all a lot of political machinations going on.
There definitely was that.
Yeah. The second interesting thing about Arrakis is that there's this whole... The culture is completely centered around water, more specifically moisture, because it's a desert planet. There's not very much water, so every single drop of water is sort of it's sacred almost. People, the people who live on the planet in the desert, the Fremen, they wear these things called still suits, which will reclaim all of their moisture through sweat and
to hydrate them.
And urine and stuff, and they filters it, and then it recycles it, and you can drink it.
I thought that was such a cool concept.
I know, yeah. It's if you're wearing it properly, you'll only you'll only lose a thimbleful of water a day, basically.
Which honestly can increase a person's lifespan without going without food or water. Mm-hmm. That's honestly such a cool technological concept. I'm like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So water is sacred, and you money means nothing to the Fremen. You're we'll pay you for something, and they're like, why would we want your money? If you have water, it's much more important to them. And there was this moment where it's just a cool sort of cultural thing, where basically when the Duke is meeting with the leader of the Fremen, Stilgar, he comes up to the table and he in front of the Duke and he spits on the table.
Oh yeah, that's right.
All of the Dukes fighting men and soldiers just like freak out. They start like drawing their weapons and stuff because like in their culture, to spit at somebody is like a sign of disrespect.
Right.
But there was this guy who he had gone to visit the Fremen, so he knew what it was about, and he was like, whoa, hang on. No, he's like, we accept your gift of your body's moisture, and we return that gift in the manner in which it was received, and then they all spit on the table as well. It was like such a cool like cultural thing. It's one of those. Was
it the same character that also did it in the film? Was it Duncan?
It's Duncan. Mm-hmm.
It was Duncan. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so water is really, really important, and like the fact that in the compound on Arrakis where the Atreides lived, that there were 20 palm trees was just like it's such a like extravagant like decadence sort of gesture that they were there. Like they were there already. I think the Harkonnens planted them or something, but
okay.
Yeah, it was like each tree every day needs
the amount of 10 men's worth of water?
5 people's worth of water. So 100 people's worth of water every day keeps all of these palm trees in the Duke's compound watered. And like there's this little scene where Paula's talking to the guy who's watering the trees. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, should we cut them down and save the water? And he's like, no, these are sacred. In my brain, I was just thinking to myself, I was like, no, because then I would be unemployed. I'm the tree waterer. You wouldn't want me to be unemployed, would you?
I mean, to be fair, yeah.
Yep.
I can definitely see.
We could cut them down, save the water. No! Then I would lose my job.
Right. So,
but that's basically what the story is Paul sort of coming into his own into a bunch of different, like a couple of different birthrights that he has. You remember at the beginning of the movie, the Reverend Mother said, like, you have more than one birthright.
Yeah, because he has the birthright as the next head of the House of Atreides.
Yeah, the Duke, yeah.
His mother is of this oracle order.
The Bene Gesserit, yeah.
Which I remember them saying that no oracle has mainly only sire female children.
Somehow the Bene Gesserit can decide whether they want to have a boy or a girl.
But apparently there's some kind of like prophecy or something about a male.
Yeah.
Of descendant of the Bene Gesserit.
Yeah, and that's mostly what I have that I want to talk about here. Like I was thinking about what the movie did a really good job of setting up that is difficult to kind of grasp in the book. And also I learned something as well that I hadn't noticed the first couple of times that I read it, mostly just because there's so many different terms and words in like different languages and stuff that I had trouble keeping track of. So, so let's talk a little bit about Dune and fate, prophecy, and free will, and how that all goes together.
By the way, if you guys haven't read Dune or seen the film adaptation yet, I know it's a little late for this, but spoiler alert.
Yep. So, basically, there's this, when they get to the desert planet.
When they get to Arrakis.
And they're like, yeah, this was in the movie. They were like at the airfield and they were walking toward the, transport or whatever, and there were all of these Iraqian people standing along these sidelines, and they're all getting really excited and like shouting about the Lisan al-Gaib.
Yeah.
And Paul asks, "What is that?" And they were looking at us and saying that, and she said that they said Lisan al-Gaib, which means voice from the outer world. It's their word for Messiah. Which basically there's this prophecy among the people of Arrakis, among the Fremen, that this voice from the outer world, the Lizan al-Gaib, the son of a Bene Gesserit, will arrive and will help them. Will lead them to paradise. Basically, help make Arrakis into a land where there's enough water for everyone. There's enough water to have plants, like just to terraform the place and make it lush and green and into an Eden, basically.
Okay.
So that's their hope there. But the thing that's interesting about that, and that the David Lynch movie was made in like 1967 or something, kind of glossed over this, was that this prophecy of the Lizan al-Gaib is basically it's a Bene Gesserit ploy kind of thing, where they basically they have this thing called the Missionaria Protectiva, which is this, it's like a project or a mission where Bene Gesserit went around the galaxy and sort of planted the seeds of
the idea,
basically. Like that same scene on the airfield where they're all saying, she says that Lizan al-Gaib is their name for, pardon me just a sec, is their name for Messiah.
Do you want some water?
Yes, please. I don't usually talk this much in the...
No, it's okay. This is a very talk-heavy subject.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what else do I expect doing a podcast? Like, what, you mean I have to talk? But yes, the Missionaria Protectiva is this kind of this teaching, the seeds of prophecy that they plant among the people, so that in time when they're kind of to serve as a like they create a prophecy and then they sort of manipulate things that are political, genetic, things like that, just among the like bigger houses, the royalty and stuff, to create a fulfillment of that prophecy that they planted there. So that scene when they were on the airfield and Paul asks, what are they saying? Jessica says it's the Lizan al-Gaib, the voice from the outer world, and it's their word for Messiah. And he's like, what does it mean? And she says, it means that the Bene Gesserit have been at work here. It means that they've spread the Missionaria Protectiva around, basically to give Jessica and Paul an in with the Fremen, basically. Yeah. Because the Bene Gesserit want them to get involved with the Fremen and want them to improve this planet. And so they sort of, as Jessica put it in the movie, prepared the way. Right. And there's a lot of stuff in the books where they go and they're talking to like Stilgar about something, and he says something, and because Jessica is familiar with the Missionaria Protectiva, she knows how to respond in a way that sounds like organic and coincidental, but to him it sounds like a prophecy is being fulfilled. This is all very confusing, I'm sure, but so yeah, the Bene Gesserit sow the seeds of prophecy, then manipulate politics and genetics to create a fulfillment. They appear to foretell the future rather than mold it to their liking. So the Bene Gesserit are basically like these mastermind puppet masters behind all this stuff, and they sort of they steer the world the way they want it to go, mostly by spreading these seeds on different planets, and then also by mingling bloodlines very very carefully to create people who are predisposed to like have the potential to fulfill these prophecies that they said. So basically, it's kind of like working backwards,
right?
Almost, where usually what happens is you hear a prophecy and then it comes to be fulfilled at some point, but they have like this idea of a fulfillment that they want to happen, and so they craft this prophecy so that it will come to pass as they would like it to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a real agenda-like thing that other science fiction stories that utilize fictional organized religions for either good or bad purposes will generally do things along this line of setting up in order to fulfill the one goal.
Yeah, it's very political, and the Bene Gesserit basically being Jessica is a Bene Gesserit, and she was given to the Duke as a concubine, basically.
Right. That's okay. I was wondering about that because in the film, I remember the Duke saying, "I wish I married you," or something along those lines.
Yeah, and he never did, because if the Duke is unmarried, people from other royal houses will sort of, they'll treat him differently because there's still an intermarriage opportunity there.
Right.
And so it's kind of like, there was this thing in the book where he was like, yeah, I never intended to marry anybody, but just the possibility of it makes other houses show a little bit more deference to him.
The political influence of the aristocracy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, pretty much. Let me see. Okay, so that's the Lisan al-Gaib.
Right.
That's one of the prophecies that's made that then, through manipulation of genetics, of basically Jessica's her skills and her the Lisan al-Gaib is going to be the son of a Bene Gesserit, so naturally.
Already it's aligned.
Yeah, and so that is sort of set up, and then he ends up fulfilling the prerequisites basically for being the Lisan al-Gaib, and then the Bene Gesserit arranged for the Atreides to be sent to Arrakis to sort of continue this prophecy they have in mind. So that's the Lisan al-Gaib. There's also, I think you heard this phrase, the Kwisatz Haderach.
Every now and again, yeah. There are a lot of okay. So we haven't really talked about the film. In the film, there's I remember when I was talking with Andy Wagner Twilight about it afterwards. We both compared it to how the movie version of Fellowship of the Ring was for the rest of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It was a lot of setup and world building.
Right. Yes. Because
the hard thing I'm about to do with this film, because it comes from a very, very well-known source material, kind of like how the Lord of the Rings trilogy was. There's a lot to explain and a lot of exposition and setup.
Yeah.
So there were multiple terms that you had to pay attention to.
Yeah. And even having read the book a couple of times, I actually didn't realize until I saw the movie and also read the book again, that the Lisan al-Gaib and the Kwisatz Haderach are not the same thing.
Honestly, if I saw the film in theaters again, and I wish movie theaters had this, I wish they had a little bit more of a desk kind of space where you could just take notes.
Yep.
For people like us.
Yep. So the Lisan al-Gaib is a Arrakis thing.
Okay.
It's the person who will lead the people of Arrakis to paradise.
Right.
That's what the Lisan al-Gaib is. That idea comes from the Bene Gesserit, another idea that comes from the Bene Gesserit is sort of more focused on the Bene Gesserit itself.
Okay.
They've been crossing bloodlines for hundreds of years to create this Kwisatz Haderach, a man able to see the memories of all his predecessors. I will read something to you because it will make more sense, kind of.
And now a reading from Dune by Hannah Kubiak.
I'll get some water first so I don't get all...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let me know if you need a refill.
So I don't get all croaky.
You're doing great.
Alrighty. So. So this is right after the Reverend Mother tests Paul with the Gom Jabbar, the hand in the box.
Yeah, the test.
Yeah.
Right.
To see if he's human, basically. You say maybe I'm the Kwisatz Haderach? What's that, a human Gom Jabbar? Paul, Jessica said, you mustn't take that tone with, I'll handle this, Jessica. The old woman said, now lad, do you know about the Truthsayer drug? You take it to improve your ability to detect falsehood, he said. My mother's told me. Have you ever seen Truth Trance? He shook his head. No. The drug's dangerous, she said, but it gives insight. When a truthsayer's gifted by the drug, she can look many places in her memory, in her body's memory. We look down so many avenues of the past, but only feminine avenues. Her voice took on a note of sadness. Yes, there's a place where no truthsayer can see. We are repelled by it, terrorized. It is said a man will come one day and find in the gift of the drug his inward eye. He will look where we cannot, into both feminine and masculine pasts. You're Kwisatz Haderach? Yes. The one who can be many places at once. The Kwisatz Haderach. Many men have tried the drug. So many. But none have succeeded. They tried and failed, all of them? Oh no. She shook her head. They tried and died. So, they've been searching for this guy for ages. Because they're so selective about creating this guy who described it in the movie as a mind that can bridge time and space. That they basically, they will tell these Bene Gesserit that they have given away in concubinage to different royalty. They're all instructed. That to have only girls. Like Jessica was instructed to do that. Like, you were told to have only girls. Why did you have this boy? And she's like, right. Well, the Duke wanted a son. He really wanted a son. And they're like, no, you were proud and thought that you could make the Kwisatz Haderach. So maybe there
might have been many things involved in that. Yep. Love may have played a part. Who knows?
Yes, maybe yeah, and so there's that. There's this person who is basically the Bene Gesserit are all women.
Right.
It's basically a man with Bene Gesserit powers will be able to see a whole lot more, they say. I don't know why. But yeah, it's...
No, different brain patterns, different avenues. I don't know.
Yeah. And so then if this is all sort of created by the Bene Gesserit to fulfill their own prophecies, basically, then does Paul have any free will or anything in any of this? Like, is he just fated to become the answer to all of these prophecies, or does he have agency, basically, as a question?
We talked about that in several different science fiction stories, just like the concept of free will. I know there was a couple stories back in Author August that we talked about that dealt with that. What was it? What was the one Orson Scott Card story that we went over?
Songmaster?
I feel like that choice of free will was... We did talk about that during that.
Yeah, I think we did. Yeah.
That it brought me back to that, but at the same time, in the film, they actually showcase this very, very well in Paul's actor, like, several times. Like, he always questions everything. Which, as a curious, like, young kid, like, you're often want to do.
Yeah.
Like, you're given all these expectations, you're trained in combat and politics, but at the same time, also taught the ways of the Bene Gesserit with the voice and everything.
Yeah. So, yeah, he's had a lot of training.
Like the moment like after everything happened when he was just with his mother and like they were in the tent, he has that breakdown.
Yeah, that is.
He's just overwhelmed by these visions that he's been having because he's very susceptible to this spice.
The spice, yeah, and so one would ask, you say, well, he's a visionary, he can see things, so he must, the prophecy must be true then. He must be a like a fulfillment of the prophecy if he sees all these visions and they come to pass. It's like, well, yeah, he's a visionary and he has like Bene Gesserit abilities and stuff, but that's only because he's the son of a Bene Gesserit, which is a very rare thing. So they haven't had very much to go on in observing such a thing. And it's kind of like you're like, is it destiny? And you're like, no, that also is like part of the Bene Gesserit plots to cross bloodlines and create this person with the potential, you know. And he's mostly just potential at the beginning of the movie. It's like you could still choose to do something different, like his dad said when they were still in Caladan. Yeah,
before they basically moved the house to Arrakis, and he had that with his father that he said he may not be ready.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want to be the Duke right now. And his dad's like, I didn't either. I wanted to be a pilot, which I think is really cool because Oscar Isaac played a pilot in Star Wars.
Dude, Oscar Isaac was so good in this film. He was
great. My mom and I, last week, we recorded an episode about Dune because we went and saw it together.
Go check out SPLANCHNIC's.
Yep, go check out SPLANCHNIC's. I haven't edited the episode yet, but we mostly spent the whole time talking about how awesome Duke Leto is.
Yeah, Duke,
so,
like...
So if you want to hear my thoughts about that, go and listen to SPLANCHNIC's.
I'm just going to cue into the film really quick because we talked a lot about like the entire like plot of like the first half of Dune, which is what... For those not in the aware, if you guys haven't seen Dune yet and you're ignoring the spoilers, this is only like the first part of what it might be 2 or maybe 3 films. I'm assuming it's probably only going to be 2, but who knows?
The book. Yeah, I basically there's. Like this right here is how far we got.
All right, so they're at that like the halfway point.
Yeah, and that's all like set up things and stuff. And I think the second half will be more like there'll be more battle sequences and stuff.
Okay.
But one more thing about the free will and destiny and that scene with his dad when they were talking like at the graveyard of all of their ancestors and stuff. That was such a sweet scene. Like, it was one of my favorites because he was just talking about how he's saying you have a lot of responsibility and you're going to be the Duke someday. He's like, I don't want to be the Duke. He says, yeah, neither did I when I was your age. And what did he say? He said
something along the lines that when his father died, it was thrust upon him.
Yeah, he's like, men. A man doesn't.
It was something along the lines of sometimes a man doesn't have a choice. It's
a man doesn't choose to lead. He's called to it, and even if you don't answer, you will still be everything I ever needed you to be, my son.
That was a really sweet moment.
So sweet.
He basically said, "Whatever you decide, I have total faith in you."
He's like, yeah, and he's like, you. Like, I'm already proud of you, and no matter what you do, I already, nothing's gonna change the fact that I just love you so much.
For a young boy to hear that from his dad, that means a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's a really cool, like, just just the example of that character, because I know we have a lot of people in our generation, particularly, like, live in one-parent households, maybe don't have a father figure. Like, I know I didn't. And just seeing that exemplified somewhere was just really cool and heartwarming and stuff.
Well, even in, like, even outside of, like, one-parent households, even in two-parent households, there are some people, especially in, like, our generation that I've come across that have had, a rough, like, relationship with either parent, but especially coming from a male perspective, as, like, when you're a young man and you're not you don't get that, like, love and, like, recognition from someone who basically is the reason you're alive and, like, you look up to, like, as a young human. Like, that does a lot to a person's psyche.
Yeah, and just the idea that his father loved him unconditionally.
Yeah.
And that he made sure that his son knew that. You know, was just, I think, just a really important place to start off there.
Yeah. Because we see it in, like, throughout the film, like, Paul basically has his emotions on his sleeve.
Yeah.
Like, he's still, like, a growing kid. Like, he's still developing this identity. And when basically the Atreides house is attacked and the only survivors that remain, like, after everything was him and his mom. And it's basically like a fight for survival until, like, and then they come upon the Fremen. The Fremen, sorry. I mean,
they are free men.
True. And then you could argue, like, he starts to find into his own. He's like, this is what I feel like I have to do.
Yeah. So they call it, what is it? He calls it, like, race consciousness or something, where just this sort of, what is the word? This sort of prescient knowledge of the future based on your past. Like, you remember something just sort of, like, in your very being and not in your mind. It's kind of
second nature.
Yeah, that whole thing, like, with destiny and stuff. Like, he
I'm thinking either second nature or predetermination.
Predetermination, yeah. So he'll have this thought and he say, okay, I can see that this is destined by the past, by my genetics, by my training. I've been built to do, basically, I'm a weapon that's been built to do this specific thing at this specific time. He's like, I could still choose not to. And I guess sort of just what really fascinates me is the thin line between, like being fated for something and choosing something. It's almost like, so the thing that Leto said to him about, like, your, like power is, like, power and leadership is, like, you're called to it.
Right.
And just because you're called to something, just because people have told you that you're destined to do this or destined to do that, you could still do something else. Just because it's destined doesn't mean you have to do it. Like, I think it's malleable, and, like, this happens with, like, Paul will see the future. Like, before his knife fight at the end, he saw, like, himself getting killed, but it didn't end up that way. She's like, I can change the future that I see.
Right.
Yeah. Sort of like that sort of revelation. And, like, there was something where they asked him, what do you want your name to be when you're, like, among the Fremen? And he says, like, well, I'd like to be named after that hopping desert mouse. He's like, oh, we call that Muad'Dib. It's like, oh, I saw in a vision that they were going to call me Muad'Dib, but I didn't know what that meant. But then he said, could you could I keep the name my dad gave me, Paul, and could you call me Paul Muad'Dib? And they're like, yeah, sure. I was like, cool. I changed this little thing. I did a different thing. That's awesome. So you can still kind of mold it.
They didn't actually do that in the film. I think that happens further down, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, and
So with everything that like we have, like all this material that we've worked with,
sorry.
how did you think it translated to like this film? Because this was like the second or third time that Dune has been adapted into screen form before. Like you've mentioned the David Lynch film, and I haven't seen it, but I've only heard like things of possibly being like as bad as like a book to film adaptation could get.
It's pretty rough.
And then I think they tried to do it like a TV like film or TV short series thing with like the Sci-Fi Channel like.
You know, that just
I read up on that they tried to do that.
It completely went over my radar. But the movie did a pretty good job. I thought it was a little bit long.
Okay.
But, yeah, I feel like it was, most of it was necessary because you need to build you have to build the world. Mm-hmm. Basically, build these characters, make you love these characters, and then throw these characters into a fire. And that's basically what they did. I
did not mind the long runtime, mainly because, for me, if you're going to do a long film, if you can suck in your audience within about the first within the first act, like the first like 30 to 45 minutes of like a 2.5 hour to like 3 hour film.
Yeah.
And keep that engagement, even with the amount of exposition that you're giving them. Then you've got it.
Nice.
Like, you've sold it.
Yeah. So...
I mean, that's the way I see it, though.
For a movie that's based on a book that's so convoluted and political and actually also just so cerebral, like there's whole chapters, like the whole chapter in The Tent is basically just Paul thinking about all this stuff and like the spice, too much of the spice gets into his system, and he starts to like see all of these visions and pieces come together, and like he sees stuff in the future, he sees stuff in the past.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I've been hearing. This is a hard novel to adapt.
Yeah, it's so difficult because it's so complicated, so complex. But that whole scene in the tent is mostly just him thinking, and it's all in his head. And then there's that moment where he basically realizes, he's like, yeah, you, the Bene Gesserit, you made me into your freak, to fulfill all these prophecies that you want fulfilled and stuff. And that was all in his brain mostly, but they did a pretty good job at it with the movie. Like that was one of the scenes that I was kind of thinking. I was like, how are they going to do this in the movie? But yeah, it was a good adaptation. It gave you what you needed to know without giving you excess stuff, and it made you like the characters, and you understood what was going on, even if you kind of got info dumped a little bit. You could at least sort of see the through line.
Right. Well, even like with the info dump, like they showcased everything in like creative and like unique ways, like either through visual, explanatory, or even just like emotional storytelling ways. It wasn't all like an exposition dump as characters just say, as you know, which oh my god. As soon as a character says that when it hasn't been earned, I'm like, oh god, okay, I've checked out, I'm done. But yeah, I think it did really well. Like I know like a lot of people said that this was like one of those like novels that was said to be like unadaptable because it's like impossible. It's kind of like how the original Lord of the Rings trilogy was like said to be unadaptable.
Right, like you couldn't possibly make a movie out of this and do it justice.
Like yeah, like and there have been examples of in both cases trying in the past before it came into like the definitive like adaptation in like most people's minds.
Yep. I still can't believe that the guy who made Lord of the Rings was the same guy who made that I kick ass for the Lord.
I still can't believe that I broke your mind with that.
My mind is broken. It was the first thing I watched in the morning as well. I hadn't even gotten out of bed. I looked at what time it was and I was like, Discord clip. I kick ass for the Lord. What the?
And then I said, can you believe that Peter Jackson directed this? And you're like, what?
Yeah.
The things we get into on Discord.
Mm.
So, with how this film ended,
I have word vomited all of my thoughts.
No, you're okay.
So,
any expectations for the second half of the film when it gets released in a couple of years?
A couple of years, oh man.
It's slated to be released around 2023.
Oh my gosh.
I think I actually have the info right here.
Yeah.
So.
Expectations?
Like anything you would like to see.
I'm looking forward to seeing how they do the how they do Paul's little sister. Like what she's gonna be like, because she's an interesting character in the book. She's like a super genius 4-year-old when we finally meet her.
Okay, I didn't realize that this was a thing.
Yeah.
Well, then again, I haven't seen the novels yet, so I've read the novels.
They mentioned it briefly.
All right. Let's see. When is the? Okay, here it is. Dune Part 2 was confirmed with a planned release in October of 2023.
Dude. Okay.
With possible other side projects being worked on during the time. Who knows?
Side projects? What does that mean?
Apparently one of them was doing a sisterhood side series or something. That's what I was reading in preparation for this episode. I don't know.
The sisterhood of the traveling Bene Gesserit.
I think so. Who knows?
Sister. That'll be a creepy movie.
But yeah, it was my first time being introduced anything to Dune. I was hooked.
Yeah? Oh, good.
It really makes me want to read the book. It had, like I said, it had that same feeling that Fellowship of the Ring had on me when I was a child and I had not read any Lord of the Rings.
Right.
It made me want to read the original books. This is kind of the same kind of feeling that I got.
Yeah.
Although I feel like as a kid, I felt like Lord of the Rings was more intriguing to me than how if this film was made back then and was just compared to that, I don't think it would have that same hook to me as a child. This seems more like a very young adult to adult oriented story.
Yeah. When I read it in high school, I definitely did not understand all of it.
Even though arguably this is one of the biggest science fiction epics ever put to book.
Yeah. People argue about whether or not it's science fiction or fantasy.
Well, science fiction and fantasy blend together so often that the lines are already blurred.
Yeah.
But if you consider the fact that some science fiction borrows a lot from fantasy and fantasy also borrows from science fiction, at the end of the day, if you love what you're seeing and the two blend together, just let it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
But there are
I'll have to look into again what the difference is, because it's kind of like grammar for me, where I'm like, okay, I know that this is fantasy, even though it kind of looks like science fiction. I know it's fantasy, but I couldn't tell you why. I just know that sounds right.
Right.
You know?
I mean, a lot of the vehicles and stuff that were designed in the film version, the dragonfly helicopters. Oh my god, those were so cool.
The Globofopters, yeah.
Oh my god, that was so awesome. And like you said, the fact that they don't rely on computers,
usually
was a big thing.
Usually in sci-fi, you kind of there's usually some sort of technology component.
Mm-hmm.
I remember what it is. I don't remember who said it, but science fiction is something that it could be possible if we advanced enough, basically.
Well, I mean, anything is possible if you can imagine it, though. That's my argument in that one.
Like dragons existing.
Hey,
or,
we don't know what lies beyond the stars.
Yeah. Actually, I am of the opinion that if dragons live anywhere, they live in space.
We're going to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space! Thank you, Tim Curry. But, yeah, I can't wait for the second part of this film. I'm excited where they're going to go with it. Again, I haven't read the original novel yet, so I'm going in completely blind.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens come 2 years from now when the film is actually released.
So excited.
And I think we can leave it off at that.
Yeah.
Huh? All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. What did you guys think of the this adaptation of Dune? Let us know. You guys can check us out on social media at General Geekery on Instagram and at Gen Geek Podcast on Facebook and Twitter. All of this that will be in the description of this episode. You can check us out on all of our respective sites, social media, such as Twitter and Instagram. Hannah's at Pythian Legume. I am at Ryuzaki MK7. You can also check out my Twitch channel, Ryuzaki MK7, as well. You can check Hannah out on Mondays, and both me and Hannah out on Wednesdays at Loaded Dice Adventures as a part of the new Avenaria Corsairs campaign. It's my first time playing a D&D campaign. I'm having a lot of fun. Last night, we basically we are on a ship now, and I was hunting rats.
Yep. You got to be the rat catcher one night.
I got to be the rat catcher one day, and on top of that, I almost drank myself to death.
Yep.
It was awesome.
Yep.
You go, Calabec.
Yep. So that's.
And if you guys want to interact with us through our Discord, we have the link for that in the description of this episode. And if you guys want to support the podcast in any way, shape, or form, you can either pledge to our Patreon or give us a bit of thine coin on our Coffee page.
Woo!
We have one now. The links for both of those will be in the description of this episode as well. This has been episode 98 of the General Geekery podcast, Geeks at the Movies, talking about Dune. For Hannah Kubiak, I'm Donald Kaczynski, and until next time, guys, take care of yourselves, keep being awesome, and don't forget, don't inhale the spice. Don't go crazy over the spice. But always remember to keep your geek on.
Always.
Clink, clink.
That was a good clink.
That it was. Bye, guys.